Hello and welcome. I'm Mike Bazalka, Executive Features Editor for Food Management. I'm excited you've joined us for today's webinar on increasing traffic in underperforming day parts. Today's webinar is sponsored by Nestle Miners. Before we get started, I have two quick housekeeping details. First, this session is being recorded and will be available on demand following the webinar at food-management.com. We will follow up after the webinar with a link to view on demand. Registration is free, so feel free to share this with your colleagues to view at any time. Second, please ask your questions at any time during the Q&A using the Q&A widget on your screen. We'll have an opportunity for some Q&A with our speaker after the presentation, so please jump in at any time and we'll get to as many questions as possible. Now, let's get started. In the last 18 months, and even before, when and where food is served in on-site environments has been changing. What does this mean for operations and menus? What are the challenges and opportunities that this poses? Today, we have gathered some great panelists to discuss more about the blurring of traditional day parts. I would like to welcome first Pam Lampett, Director of Business Services at the University of Pennsylvania, Orlando Apodaca, Corporate Executive Chef with Nestle Professional, Dan Henroyd, Director of Nutrition and Food Services at University of California, San Francisco Health, and Felix Maietta, Corporate Executive Chef with Nestle Professional. Okay, well, let's get started with our conversation. I'm going to ask our two operator panelists first to talk about what they're seeing in terms of customer traffic pattern changes, especially since the pandemic hit, in terms of when customers are looking for food service and where, other than those traditional areas. Dan, let me start with you. What are you seeing?
So we're seeing a lot of the same day parts that people are looking for, but people are looking for a higher level of convenience, meaning that they don't want to wait in line. They're under a little bit more pressure and stress due to the nature of what they're doing. Again, in the healthcare segment, we've been on the front line since day one, and most of our work has been off-site, and we've maybe had fewer transitions compared to other verticals. But that pressure to kind of get things through and to do so at a value price point is increased during the pandemic.
And what about you at University of Pennsylvania? What are you seeing?
So thanks, Mike. Really happy to be with this panel, distinguished panel. We're seeing, the need for quality convenience. We have a large population of students who do not want to dine in, who are either still taking their food outside. The university has supported that by having large tents in various locations on the campus, and or eating in their rooms. So technology, in terms of being able to order your food in advance, because for these students, they don't want to spend a lot of time indoors, crowded areas. So we've seen an increase exponentially with our Penn Eats Transact mobile app. We've seen a tremendous amount of increase in terms of, our traditional meal swipe being used as what we call a meal exchange. So it's just right now, this is where we are. I think that the negative impact to this, and which is heightened by some of our students, is because when things are grab and go, even though we use a reusable green-to-go container, we're still using, disposables. And we're a high recycling campus. And, we just need to get the students and the campus at large, really involved in the mindset of recycling. So those students who are very concerned about sustainability, as we are, as we have been, are really concerned about the use of plastics and various types of to-go containers. So that's what we're seeing on Penn.
Compared to pre-COVID, is there a day part that you've seen, especially a big drop or a large increase?
Day part wise, the university changed the way that the classes are scheduled. And I think that they are, they're trying to squeeze everything in, and in some cases they only have 15 minutes between class. We're seeing what's interesting on our campus is that we have first year and second year students who are new to our campus. And so we have a very interesting population base who don't know where they're going, they don't know what they're doing. So I think that we still are seeing the traditional day parts. That really hasn't changed much. We're not getting the call to, deliver food at 2 a.m.
Okay. Dan, are you seeing any dramatic changes in when traffic is occurring in your operations?
No, our reductions have been pretty proportional. So we are a graduate health sciences university, and even though my operations are officially in the hospitals, I am also dining services. So we haven't had students on campus up until the last quarter. And so not having them on campus, and then also pretty significant visitor restrictions have also decreased the number of people. I mean, breakfast and lunch are still our largest day parts, comprising 75% of our transactions. That hasn't really appreciably changed with that. So we're about the same, just net volume is lower.
Okay, well, let's bring in our chefs to talk about the menu end of this. There's certain pressures being put on what kinds of things are being served, how they're being prepared, the labor that's required, the ingredients that are required, how well they hold in grab and go and take out environments. What does that mean for the kinds of things and the kinds of menu items and foods that need to be serving this kind of emerging environment? Let me start with you, Orlando. What are your thoughts on that particular subject?
For this particular subject, I definitely feel that there's been a paradigm shift in how we perceive the quality of food, and especially with the labor shortage that we are presented with today. It is a conundrum for most operators that I've noticed, is because they're trying to, the whole times for a grab and go, for example, and how do they achieve their end goal? So a lot of this has been more of a speed scratch mentality. And how do we assist chefs throughout the country has been a very different role for us. So we've really leveraged ourselves in a position, and especially in the overall industry, to assist that aspect, much like at University of Pennsylvania and in San Francisco as well. Different areas of the country, but I also feel that a lot of it is geographically based. Mm-hmm. So, for example, here in Texas, things have been a little wild west out here still, so we've been open for a lot longer comparative to other parts of the country. So things have been progressing here a lot faster in those terms. So we're seeing the shift kind of slowly going back to some new sense of normalcy here. And Chef Felix, I think you might have some interesting points for that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chef. I'm here on the East Coast, actually. I'm in Pennsylvania. And so we were a lot slower to reopen, allowing, indoor dining. It's still not back 100%. In Philadelphia, the operators and the restaurateurs are working with, a lot less labor. And so, I've been trying to work with some of the chefs and some of the operators that I support to help them maximize their menus. Menus aren't as big as they used to be. They're much more hyper-focused, whether it's being, everybody wants to be as hyper-local as they can. However, the supply chain is not helping with that. So I really think that, from my perspective, helping operators understand the value of the real estate that the menu is, you can't have a large menu if you're going to focus on takeaway, because to your point, Chef, packaging and presentation is everything. What is the product going to look like and taste like 45 minutes to an hour after you've ordered it and it arrives at your door? So from a takeout perspective, a lot of thought and care has to be given into selecting the right menu items. and how can we help achieve maximum flavor and presentation once it leaves the restaurant, because then it's out of the operator's control. So, it's kind of we're evolving into what the new normal or what the next normal is going to look like. Hospitality is always ever evolving, but I think what's constant is takeout is here to stay. And I think helping operators find that balance on how to do that and execute that at a very high level is going to bring profitability to them and keep them solvent.
That seems to me to be a special challenge for operators. As there's more takeout, more grab and go, more items being stored in everything from smart fridges to micro markets and so forth, the integrity of those things has to remain constant, because customers are not going to settle for kind of second best, even with those kinds of modes. How do you approach that, Pam, at University of Pennsylvania, to make sure that the food that you're providing through some alternate ways remains with the high quality that you have with the freshly prepared things you serve in cafes?
So, we're not immune to the staffing shortage. So we had to get very creative. Locally, there is a vendor that makes a very high quality pre-made sandwich, pre-made salads, pre-made desserts. And we're utilizing those items to do the meal exchange, to be a swipe exchange. And the quality is very high. They understand how to build a sandwich so that the bread doesn't get soggy. They understand how to do all of this. And so finding the right vendor at the quality level that's on par with what we're doing in the dining cafes was really very important to us. We additionally made a huge, significant change in one of my operations. It's in the middle of the quad. 1,500 first-year students live in this quad. And we've never really figured out what to do, because it's a historic building, so we can't have cooking equipment, a grill or things of that sort of nature, a steamer or an oven. And we have a very successful relationship on campus with our sushi vendor that's in one of our very large retail operations. And we just decided finally to give the students what they want, which was sushi, rice bowls, and noodle bowls. So when you want to talk about quality, portability, we really listen to our students. And, in a day of serving probably 7,500 meals, 1,500 of them could be from sushi and sushi bowls alone.
Those certainly are emerging student favorites. Dan, your operation has always been kind of at the cutting edge of using technology to facilitate serving customers. What are some of the things that you're doing to make sure that the foods that are being sent through mobile ordering and delivery and so forth continue to maintain the standards of quality that you expect from your operation?
So we've been doing standalone micro-market fridges for 10 years now. So the ability to deliver a high-quality product at 3 o'clock in the morning for our customers is basically the same. What has changed is sort of the variety of products that we are seeing in there. And we're seeing more issues where maybe students are more food insecure. In other cases, we're seeing loss of household income impacting the disposable income available to patronize our operations. So we've done a lot to kind of look at our value proposition for some new products that are in there, creative reuse of leftovers that can be sold and reheated. We have microwaves proximate to these standalone fridges, and we've got a high user case for what needs to go in there and how we can stock those and better manage that product ourselves rather than going to an outside vendor. Though it is certainly a balance between the stuff that we make and the stuff that we can purchase high quality from the outside. We're going to have food lockers soon to go with our mobile ordering solution. We spun our mobile ordering solution up during the pandemic and have been doing not only pickup, which is mostly been, but we've also been playing around with destination delivery. meaning that I'm not going to deliver everywhere on campus, but I am going to go to discrete destinations and have an arrangement that I can drop off there without having, a full investment in a food locker because space is so precious around here. And so that's, I think, where a lot of the technology is helping facilitate our operations.
Does any of this necessitate any major changes in menu approach, kinds of things you can serve, kinds of things you can't serve?
We have not found that to be the case. We have certainly made adjustments on, how much self-service there is and are really taking a hard look at maybe some of the traditional things, like, do we really want to bring that self-service salad bar back? It's a loss leader. It's a satisfier, but there's a phenomenal amount of waste to that. And so can we look at other technologies? We're looking sort of at higher end vending solutions that are on the market for salad. We've got a permit to put in a ramen concept very soon that'll happen this year. So a hot bowl of ramen at 3 o'clock in the morning. And we've got pretty high standards for ramen out here. So it better be good. And we know that it is. So there's some other things that we're looking to maximize our labor as well.
It's certainly a culinary challenge. So let me turn back to our chefs. Orlando, what are the kinds of things that you're seeing people requesting, operators or even customers, kinds of things that you're seeing more demand for and are feeling kind of the urgency to try to make sure that you satisfy as a chef?
From working with a lot of the chefs here in the community, a lot of them have started to notice that during the height of 2020, everyone was in their comfort zone with food. We were so accustomed to having our traditional foods. Today, they're looking outside the box. I think a lot of people have said, I don't want to eat my chicken dumplings during the winter anymore. I want a new innovative twist to it. So a lot of those aspects have started to change with that, especially with when Chef Felix was speaking about certain things of a hyper-focused menu. I'm noticing a lot of restaurants and hoteliers and as well universities here focusing specific kiosks, for example, and perfecting that specifically. As Dan spoke about ramen, for example, that they're hyper-focused on that and creating a perfect ramen just for those things, but with a little added twist, something that is regional for that aspect. Here, you're going to find smoked brisket on top of a ramen compared to what you might find in other parts of the country.
You're talking about automated kiosks or like manned kiosks?
There are automated kiosks, and I've started to notice that specifically with the technology. So a lot of the things out here that we're noticing are, for example, some of the salad bars going away and moving to some of the technology that it has with the customizable salad bars in your vending machine, for example, as well. So you will find some of those regionality aspects mixed in there with some comfort foods as well.
Felix, that's another question arises from things like that, is you still have to be able to provide the kinds of customization and variety even in when the preparer is not there, such as in an automated kiosk. What are some of the ways that menu items can be created to have that flexibility and maintain the quality in that kind of service points?
Well, I think that, the most important thing is that you're able to do multiple things with the amount of items that you carry on your menu. So, let's take, salmon, for instance. How many different preparations for salmon can you have? You could have it on salad. You could have it as an entree. You could have it in a ramen bowl. You could, we have to be able to be nimble enough to work with what we have. We all know what's going on in the labor market. And so a lot of the value that I bring to my operators and to the chefs that I work with is, listen, let's focus on what the menu looks like, and then let's develop concepts around what you have to work with. Innovation has to always happen, or you're going to get left behind. So being able to be flexible. Let's say that you ordered, filet mignon for a specific entree and it doesn't come in, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to pivot? Because, earlier on in the conversation, I talked about the real estate, the value of the menu real estate. So if you're running a smaller menu and now all of a sudden something is 86, then you can't pivot and, make lemonade out of lemons or lemons out of lemonade, then you're going to lose traction and you're going to lose sales. So helping operators with multiple solutions that they can pull out of their magic bag of tricks when something goes askew is just as important as being able to take one or two entrees to the bank because they're always going to be there. A year or a year and a half ago, that would be the case. But now you don't know from day to day, from delivery to delivery. So operators have to have flexible solutions, and they have to be able to interchange menus and menu day parts throughout the day.
It seems like quite a juggling act to be able to develop recipes that are flexible, that can accommodate changes in if supplies don't come in, that are labor friendly, they don't take a whole lot, and yet still provide the kind of customer satisfaction that's required. Are there any kinds of menu items you're seeing that just seem to be popular across the day, not just at certain times of the day? Anything especially have that kind of universal popularity that you're seeing?
Well, I think comfort foods will always be front and center. In the best of times and the worst of times, it makes certain foods, certain comfort foods, make people feel good. And in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty, I know if I can get that, chicken pot pie, that's going to make me feel good. But also, I see a lot in the emergence of indulgent snacking throughout the day. If people are working from home, they still want that. Maybe they want that double chocolate shake, and they can get it delivered, then they're going to go for it. Cookies, glazed donuts. So if you're, an operator and you're doing a lot of takeout, then you should be conscious of that and be prepared when somebody calls and said, yeah, I'll take that hamburger and this and that. And can I get a milkshake with that? Or chocolate chip cookies, or that indulgent snacking that I guess gives us that sense of feeling as normal as you possibly can. They don't get up and go to the coffee break in the office so much anymore, but they're going to go downstairs and maybe make that latte or that espresso drink, and they're going to want that sweet to satisfy their sweet tooth. So operators need to, I keep saying they have to continue to evolve, because that's what we do in hospitality to meet the needs of our customers. You almost have to anticipate those needs and be prepared for that. And it doesn't have to be everything from scratch. You have to take advantage as a good operator of speed scratch solutions, or maybe there's a chocolate chip cookie puck that you could buy and bake it in-house, and you still have that nice warm indulgent cookie that you're craving, and the operator is easily able to fulfill that need.
That indulgent
Mike,
snacking.
can I add something about Ken?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Sure. So, what we're finding is that the students nowadays want clean eating. Allergen-free stations are clean eating. And so we're seeing a real significant rise in the requests for allergen-free, simple, tasty, well-cooked food. So if I was to say, what's the trend right now? That's it. And I also want to say that, we need to bring the food on a consistent basis where our students are and where they want to get food easily. So, in addition to all of the things I've already shared, we've also worked very closely with our vending company to create the honesty cafes on campus, which serve everything from the indulgent, brownie that Felix was just talking about, to a salad, to a sandwich, to coffee, to anything that they really want, whether or not it's healthy or whether or not it's the indulgent. Having these honesty cafes throughout the campus, they're there where the students are. So we've made it very easy for them to access food.
So you're feeling a little more pressure to try, kind of add more points of service. So you said you wanted to get food to where the customers are, and perhaps even more service hours. I mean, if it can be done feasibly, which of course.
But that's it. I mean, it's all about staffing. Trying to get a staff person who wants to work at 2 a.m. on Saturday is just a rarity. So what can we do in exchange for that? Creating these honesty cafes provided that solution. They're 24/7. They have a wide variety of items. The biggest challenge has been, people take coffee cups, or they take the Equal or something like that, or the Splenda. But for the most part, because they know that it's on a camera, they're being honest. They're utilizing it as it's intended, and we're providing options for food 20.
Dan, were you going to jump in on that? I thought I heard you.
Yeah, no, I would echo what Pam said. I think that while in healthcare we've been always there, I think there's more of an expectation that we're open 24 hours, that we have something open 24 hours, and we're expanding that. And, I have a phenomenally high cost of labor relative to market, so I still have openings, but the decisions on making versus buying and more of the speed scratch are still maybe something that we've already been looking at for many, many years. Coffee is king. They want that at all hours of the day and then some. We've brought back breakfast and are doing an all-day breakfast, so that kind of goes to the comfort food mantra. But at some point, I still have a ton of openings and are struggling to kind of keep those filled. And as much as I would like to expand hours and days, it's still very, very challenging right now. And I don't know that I see an end to it at this particular time.
Yeah, healthcare has traditionally always been a 24-hour food service environment, even if a lot of it sometimes is just done by basic vending. One other question that kind of popped up in my mind when indulgent snacking was mentioned is, are you seeing more occasions where people are just taking snacks rather than meals? Or is it still basically they're taking meals and maybe just small things in between? In other words, are they spreading out their dining occasions more than they might have previously?
I don't know that we're seeing them spread out their dining occasions. They want to maybe buy 2 meals at once, and so that might be like a meal and a snack. And so we actually have found that some of the more unique type of bars and other things, maybe not full meal replacement, but something to sort of tide them over that they have. They're interested in taking those and purchasing those when they come in for breakfast. So we're seeing a lot of twofers on the transaction. I get breakfast plus a snack. I get lunch plus a snack in our operations.
Pam, are you seeing more snacking versus meals, or is it basically running about the same as traditionally? I don't know if you have you're on mute. All right, well, let me go to our chefs and some of the other challenges that this environment is bringing. One of the things that seems to be occurring is the need to have more menu items that require fewer ingredients, less labor, which kind of accords with the kind of natural food trend anyway. In other words, things that aren't overly processed or put through a kind of a culinary ringer, but natural, fresh foods presented pretty much naturally and freshly. Is that something that you're seeing? Orlando, let me start with you.
Definitely, it is something that I'm noticing more and more everywhere I go. The clean labels are a key point for a lot of people. We have several customers in my world and my sphere that really are asking for that. They want clean food. They want clean labels. They understand the difference. They want the full flavor, and they don't want to compromise with that. So in that regard, specifically, I would say in higher education, a lot of those are happening daily. Those larger areas of that they're looking at for the allergen-free stations. How can they accomplish that more often? And sometimes it's a cross. Though you will have the fully 100% 8 allergen-free station, but next to it you might have a allergen-free semi-station where you're going to have some of that. And then especially with some of the items that are included with the plant-based food revolution that we've got going on, and how that shift is definitely happening when people are looking more towards items that are comfort foods, and at the same time adding, the 8 allergen-free or the plant-based items. Speaking to Dan's comments about breakfast all day, that's definitely something that I don't think is ever going to go away, because I think it's everyone's fan favorite. We all love quote unquote Brenner, breakfast for dinner. So, you could have a plant-based sausage, for that aspect with your dinner, or you could have a vegan Alfredo, for example, that same time with plant-based chicken. And those two things mixed together are two different parts. You could have your brunch dinner at the same time with friends, and especially at your micro markets or your smart fridges, for example, that definitely go into that aspect where you could take that in a heated environment or a cold environment and reheat at your home or your dormitory.
Felix, this kind of move toward more simplified, fresher and more natural meals generally requires lesser ingredients, which certainly helps in an era when there are some supply issues with some ingredients. It also seems to me that it presents sort of a challenge in terms of continuing to make food distinctive, tasty, appealing, with fewer ingredients. What are some of the things that chefs can do in that area to make sure that things continue to be appealing?
Well, I think that flavor is everything, and so it's okay to work with fewer ingredients, but you need to be selective on what the flavor carriers are going to be in those items. Maybe it's a real clean piece of fish that is prepared in a standard way, whether it's grilled or sautéed in a pan, and then it's finished with a bold flavor sauce, or it's marinated in a unique way utilizing fresh herbs, or maybe a great pesto that could be allergen free. So I think that creativity of the chef is not really hindered. I think that if you focus on maybe 2 or 3 flavors in a dish, it makes it much simpler to build that dish with fewer ingredients. Arugula has got a great flavor, peppery flavor profile, and matches up with a lot of different proteins, including plant-based proteins. So, it really, the chefs have to be chefs and be creative. To me, it's that simple.
Yeah. Are there spicings or flavors or kind of things that are emerging that you're keeping an eye on that you find interesting, that you're following, like unique, new flavorings? Anything?
There's always something new coming out. What's the next trend? But I think that that we need to be aware, and we need to be open-minded. But when you're talking about keeping the menu simple or working with fewer ingredients, I think that you have to become much more selective on how open-minded you can be. Not that you don't want to be, but if you're offering less, then whatever you're offering needs to be really, really good, and it can't be an experimental thing. I think that that's important. Tried and true flavors, tried and true flavor profiles with a twist, with an ethnic twist, like Chef Apodaca was talking about. You know, in Texas, you may get a ramen bowl with smoked brisket. You know, in Pennsylvania, you might get a ramen bowl. Today's National Scrapple Day. You might get some Pennsylvania Dutch scrapple on your bowl. But you know, I just that's a tough one. Yes, we need to be constant and conscious and work with new flavor profiles, but we need to be sensible about it as well.
Well, we do, but there's so many different traditions, and you can kind of mash them up, as you just mentioned, a couple of flavor cuisine traditions that can be kind of combined to create something new. Orlando, any other flavorings that are kind of emerging that you're kind of keeping an eye on, you find interesting?
Some of the emerging flavors that were out there, or sauces or spices or anything like that, I definitely am still seeing a lot of the Hispanic segment still growing. So a lot of the traditional aspects for that are still there. You can go from traditional mole, you can go from several other aspects to an anchovy chili, or my favorite, hatch green chili, for example. Those are some of the more regionalities, but those things are still growing. And I don't think they're going to stop growing, because that segment of the United States is growing daily. And especially you're seeing that in college and universities. You're seeing that mashup of, you know, the example East meets West. You're going to find both of those in the same aspect. Definitely when I spent my time in Hawaii, we saw a lot of those, you know, aspects. I used to make a Kahlua pig quesadilla, for example. So we're mixing those and matching those up and creating those flavor profiles that mix very well with everything. And that's kind of what I'm seeing more than anything else.
Pam, are you seeing anything?
Mike, it's Pam. Can I add something?
Absolutely.
So what the students are looking for as well is how the spices and their health are coincide with them. So, you know, turmeric. You know, turmeric is a big spice right now that's on campus. That, you know, if you put turmeric on everything, that they'll be interested in eating it. But they're very conscious of their health, and they are very conscious of what food does for them in terms of, you know, giving them a good rest, a good sleep, or whether or not it's, you know, are they more aware based upon, you know, the foods that they're eating. So I think that the students right now, you know, are very mindful of that. In addition to that, you know, our campus is just so diverse. We need to have various sort of flavor profiles, you know, given the fact that, you know, my locations are significant in size. You know, we're able to give them the pizza and pasta station, but we're also able to give them a global fusion station, La Plancha, you know, Mexican, and things of that sort of nature. And so, you know, we go from one end of the spectrum to the other. You know, last week we celebrated Diwali, you know, through, you know, authentic food. And, you know, for our students, authenticity of food means comfort in home.
And I would just add on to what Pam said, is that not only are you celebrating those, you're trying to make it more of an experience, and it's something that you're not doing normally. So not only do we do Diwali, we did Dia de los Muertos as well earlier in the week, and we've just challenged ourselves to try new flavor profiles that maybe our customers don't traditionally expect from us. So when we did Hispanic Heritage Month, we had a lot of new cuisines that maybe we haven't done before, and that's saying a lot for our chefs who are challenging themselves to come up with new concepts, doing so with supply chain issues, doing so with labor issues, but still doing it because it provides a new level of excitement for our people, our customers, our staff. But it's an experience, so that the decor has to match the food experience as well, to know people that this is something new and different.
Actually, Dan, I was going to ask you, because you kind of skirt two different markets with the healthcare environment, but also the college. Do you see any substantial differences in the kinds of foods? I mean, healthcare is a very high stress environment. College it is at test time, but otherwise it's a little more laid back. Any substantial differences in the kinds of things that people are looking for in the two different environments?
I don't know there's anything new and different, but some of the things that I just mentioned are, sort of are folding into our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at the university and the health system overall. And so we're trying to use these opportunities to, challenge ourselves on new cuisines, show more about the culture of the cuisine that we're featuring, and not just the food. And then include other partners on campus to talk more about that, to go to what I think has already been referred to as that authentic experience. And so while we may or may not always have someone who is a subject matter expert on a particular cuisine, how can we get more of an authentic experience by partnering with people? But maybe there's other entities on campus that, like a student group, that could help provide more perspective or context to this. That's not horribly new, but if it's new for our customers, that's what's the most important, so that way they are getting the best possible experience along with everything else that they're going through in their day.
Felix, as a chef, what do you see as your biggest challenge culinarily in this emerging post-pandemic environment in the food service world? What's kind of the thing that's drawing an inordinate amount of your attention to make sure that it gets settled and satisfied?
Well, I think plant-based and plant-based flexitarian dining is front and center. I mean, 42% of global consumers align or identify themselves as flexitarians. And so how do you meet those needs in a creative way? And not just from a flexitarian standpoint, but there are other emerging dietary needs, gluten-free being one of them. I spent a lot of time in the conference center arena during my time with before I came to Nestle. And, it was all about inclusion and menu diversity in a way that everybody should be able to attend an event without having to change their eating habits or their eating style, whether it's, a personal choice, a religious choice, a medical choice. People need sustenance, and to be able to come up with menus and menu concepts around not only plant-based, but those parameters, and still meet the flavor needs of everybody. I mean, we all want good food and we all want it to taste good. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Somebody that says, but plant-based, I don't think I'll like it. But hey, listen, I want you to try this plant-based chicken that we're doing with one of our masala curry concentrates that we're able to give you a great segue into South Asian and Indian cuisine. Well, now that's interesting and more likely to gain some traction, because not only is it plant-based and from a health and wellness perspective, but and a sustainability perspective, which speaks to a lot of the students, I'm sure, on Pamela's campus as everywhere else. But now it's an interesting flavor profile that, hey, I think I'm going to dabble into that. I'm going to try that. So I think that's what chefs need to continue to challenge themselves with, to be on trend as you can and work with what you have in new and emerging foods, especially plant-based. And that's what I think is going to really, coming out of the pandemic, is going to be important to the industry.
Orlando, do you see that as kind of the biggest challenge for chefs going forward, is to kind of accommodate the great emphasis on flexitarian and plant-based eating?
I think, that is the buzzword of the day. It is something that we are talking about daily. But I do want to echo Pam's comment about functional foods, because I think that is something that they are also looking at on top of the flexitarian environment. Most people are understanding the flexitarian plant-forward concept of eating, meatless Monday, for example, and the plant-based aspect of how we are completely converting that, for the most part, to a plant-based diet. And that's where I find so many of the operators wondering, how do I incorporate that and have the food functional? What is it doing for me? And that's when you start finding some of the fermentation coming in. And that's where you find some of those great aspects. Much like Pam said, how is a fermentation helping with the probiotics? If I'm having some kimchi, for example, if I'm having some kefir also, are these things functional for me? And how do I incorporate that with my plant-based items? Which they lend to themselves very well because they complement each other, I think. There are both aspects for that because you're looking at whatever reason you might have to have been converting or eating a plant-based items. It could be from a religious aspect to a health aspect to a moral aspect, or just because you want it to change. Any of those items right there lead their way to what functionality is. And I think, definitely for Dan and Pam, they hit it right on when you talk about the functionality of foods. But on top of that, Dan, when you talk about the experience, it makes me think of sight, sound, and sizzle. Those are some of the things that I was taught early on in my life in this industry, is that you want to make that experience very pleasurable and hitting all the senses at the same time. And you throw all these things together, from plant-based to functional foods to an experience, really makes people a lot happier for the most part when they have that, and a little bit more comfort and excitement.
Making people happier.
So Mike, just to compliment what Orlando just said, I think that, I was going to say, comfort is the thing. Coming out of the pandemic, our students, our clients, our customers really want comfort, and they want to be comfortable, in our dining facilities. And they want to laugh and they want to have fun too. So we implemented in the beginning of the semester 6 weeks of fun. We had a magician roaming around the dining cafe. We had photo booths. And now at the end of the semester, we're going to do 4 weeks of fun, just so that it's a little bit more lighthearted. We also changed to 100% of our menu continuous service from 11 a.m. till when our dining cafes close, either at 9 or 9:30, just to take the pressure off the students of when they want to come in. And would they be hungry enough to use a swipe to be able to go into the dining cafe? So we removed that pressure off of them. The other thing that we did, complementing what Orlando and Felix have said, plant-based is really very important in our environment. And what we've done is, sort of trick the consumer. So when they come up to the service point, we will have vegetables first, then maybe the carbohydrate, the starch, and then maybe the protein. Because what they'll do is they'll see the plate now filled up with food, and they're not so reliant upon the center of the plate typical meat protein. So we've changed the dynamic of how they approach choosing what food they want to have on their plate.
And I would just quickly add, so not only are we seeing the emphasis on plant-based, we're also seeing a lot of interest, and maybe this is more of a West Coast thing, on minimizing animal protein. We've actually been blending our burgers for quite some time out here. We do it across all of our lines of business. So our patients, our customers, our catering, everybody gets it. No pushback whatsoever. We've started doing this now with our turkey burgers as well, making them more front and center as opposed to the beef burger. It's not that we don't still offer both, but we're trying to make the turkey burger a little bit more of an option. But that also has a blend and is not 100% turkey. So we're seeing a little bit of interest there, saying, hey, I'm going to meet people where they're at on their journey, maybe to be more plant, forward. And so doing a blend is one way to kind of incrementally get there if you kind of think of things on a continuum. Rather than sort of, it is there or it is not there in terms of animal protein.
Okay. Well, let me turn to an audience question here. I'm going to direct it first at Pam because it most directly affects her market. It's a higher ed person asking whether they're seeing a lot more demand for late night options so students can socialize in the evening. Any suggestions for how for low labor menu ideas to kind of serve that particular need?
I spoke about the Honesty Cafes. I think that they have a dynamic function on our campus. We're in the heart of Philadelphia, so Grubhub, Uber Eats, Wawas are all around our campus. And at some point in time, we just say, this is how far we go. Because really, at some point in time, after 16 weeks in one semester, they kind of get a little bit bored, and we have to continue to really be dynamic about our menu offerings. But, late night for us is really, the competition on the streets. So, we know what our functionality is, and we stay within that functionality. You look at, we need to be able to support small businesses around, the community as well. And many of them are, mom and pop, restaurants. And so, they do late night, and they do late night very well. So let them have it. But, I would look into honesty.
Dan, you have some college market too. Any ways to have some low labor solutions for late evening food service that students can socialize?
I mean, I think we've used our bite pantries to help facilitate that quite a bit. That's been our primary thing. But I think our strategy is somewhat similar to Pam's. Is there is a lot of business in the surrounding areas around our campuses that are struggling, and how can we help best support them? We have done some creative partnerships with, bringing some of those restaurants in and letting them be featured and showcased. That also helps with the diversity of menus, so to kind of keep people interested in our operations. But you get the win-win of, hey, you can eat this now in our operations, but then you can also go down the street. We've got a creative partnership with an ice cream location to our Parnassus campus, where they're donating pints and encouraging their customers to donate pints to our team members, and then they give us 50 pints at once, and we bring them into there sort of as a nice treat for our workers. So there's some creative partnerships, but it is about trying to help support them as well, because they're struggling maybe even more than we are in some cases.
Let me go around the panel here and ask this question, kind of a speculative one. What trends in menus or operations or customer preferences that have kind of emerged over this pandemic period do you see having legs beyond when hopefully all this is behind us, that things that kind of made permanent changes in the way food service and on-site operations is affected? Dan, let me start with you.
Well, I think we talked a little bit about use of technology, both in terms of assembling and preparing the food, but it's got to be multi-channel. There are many ways that people want to tap into ordering food. They want the in-person experience at times. They want the online experience. They want to know more about what you have to offer at a particular point in time, and they kind of want it in real time. And if you can't provide that to them, they may go and patronize and take their food dollar somewhere else. So I think the use of technology will certainly continue to be there. I think we're kind of reevaluating some of this traditional self-service concept, as I mentioned earlier. How can we reimagine that salad bar, but do it in a lower labor way? And maybe the salad bar becomes more of a special item instead of being this staple in our operations, as it has been for many, many, many years. So those are some of the trends that I think are going to stay. And then everything about sustainability. And it's interesting to see some people focusing on the packaging and the waste issue because of all the takeout. In other cases, they're focused more on plant forward. And in some cases, if you're just focusing on a new element of sustainability, they're satisfied with that, as opposed to saying, I want it all. I have to have a eco-friendly package, plant forward, great tasting food item. They recognize that we're a little bit limited in kind of where we're at. And I think also telling the message on the supply chain. I mean, we're spending hours every day adjusting our menus based on what we are not getting from our vendors, who are doing their best to help support us, and we love them for it. But there's just some very big picture worldwide issues. So I also think local is going to save some of us a little bit of headaches because those supply chains maybe aren't as disrupted as some of the ones that are more intricate with the worldwide supply chain.
Well, let's hope those supply chain things don't have legs and eventually iron themselves out. Pam, what about you? What trends do you see kind of continuing for the long term that kind of emerged over the last year and a half?
So on the campus, I agree with Dan. Technology is going to be here to stay. It's how we utilize it. One thing I haven't shared is that we've diversified our operations themselves to give the students different types of choices. recently this year we opened up a new residence hall that has a kitchen in it that with 430 beds, you only can seat 72 people. And really they only gave me, we're all used to this, right, chefs? Like a broom closet to be able to create a kitchen. But we really created a dynamic operation. We have a well-known chef from Philadelphia who's running it for us. And we're taking reservations. So, if a student wants to eat in a calmer type of environment, we're taking reservations for them to come to one of my dining cafes on a college campus. Recently, we had Liz Alpern, who wrote the book Gefilte Manifesto, Reinventing, Hasidic Food. She's great. She's dynamic, and she was on the campus at another one of my cafes where we serve a featured dinner entree. And students are choosing to go to these locations because it's, again, more comfort. It's a calmer kind of environment. And we've seen a significant increase in our students going to our Lauder College House, which serves a featured dinner entree each night, which is really upgraded from the regular food that we serve. So, it could be swordfish one night. It could be shrimp and lobster macaroni and cheese. It could be lamb chops. These are not typical items that we serve in college dining, but we serve them at this location because we feel that we're trying to educate their palates even further. So I think that those sort of different types of operations on our college campuses need to evolve so that our students feel comfortable coming and staying and eating.
Let me turn to our chefs quickly before time runs out on their thoughts on what trends have emerged over the last year and a half that they see continuing. Felix, let me start with you on the culinary end. What do you see?
Yeah, well, I think, what you're going to continue to see is the delivery service. Technology is going to continue, and I think that the operators are going to get real savvy, and they're going to figure it out with the right packaging and the right ingredients and the right hold times. And I think they're going to focus on delivering that fine dining experience to your door in an efficient way.
How about you, Orlando?
I think the big takeaway for me is moving forward, and the trends moving forward is the outsourcing, like Pam had spoken about. I think that trend is going to continue. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I think there will be a lot more partnerships with some of their local restaurants, some of their vendors as well, and using them as a resource to catapult them into the next year and to the next years to come. But I do think that outsourcing the local environment and integrating that into their establishments is going to be something that continues moving forward.
Well, let me throw out a last question that came in from the audience really quickly. Has anyone had any success with trying Asian-inspired breakfast items, congee, juk, or Southeast Asian noodle bowl in the morning? Anybody want to take that real fast?
So we've used congee. It's requested, but it's not really as consumed as cream of wheat and oatmeal. So we do some Southwestern kind of tofu scramble type of things just to, give some flavor to the tofu scramble. So the students seem to really enjoy it.
It's on the menu every day.
Really?
Yeah, it's my market. It's we can sell it. It works.
All right.
It worked perfectly for me when I was working in Hawaii. I had it on the menu every single day. I had congee on there. So I think it is, regional for some parts, but for me in Hawaii, it was every day on the menu for breakfast.
Sounds like there's some success with those kinds of things out there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. That's all the time we have for today. Before we wrap, I want to thank our panelists for their time today. Felix, Pam, Dan, and Orlando, thank you so much for joining us. And I also want to thank our sponsor, Nestle Minor, for supporting and participation in this webinar today. Lastly, I want to thank you, the audience, for joining us. As a reminder, this webinar will be available on demand on food-management.com. please visit to view this webinar on demand when it goes up soon. Thank you and have a great day.